So, most of you guys that know me know that I'm a huge fan of Star Trek. Star Trek and furry, I often joke, are the two reasons I never have money, and it's really true. I mean, half of the things I buy that are recreational or just for enjoyment's sake are either Star Trek related or furry of some kind, commissions, fursuits, that sort of thing. And this last Thursday was the premiere of the newest Star Trek show, Star Trek Picard, which is now the seventh live-action Star Trek series, and it's after seeing the trailer. I mean, I was intrigued right away, but I've always been the kind of person that no matter what Star Trek does, I always find something I like about it. I mean, there are some episodes that I'm not crazy about, some concepts I think could have been perhaps better performed, but by and large, I'm pretty much a diehard Star Trek fan. And, when I heard news of Star Trek Picard, it was actually broken at a convention that I was actually present at. Of course, I was not in the room at the time. There was an announcement that they said, "You won't want to miss." Of course, I had no idea what it could be. I was doing something else at the time, but I later found out that Patrick Stewart had announced his return to the role of Captain Picard, because Sir Patrick Stewart had declared that over the years, while he had thought he was done with the franchise, he had so many stories about fans that had told them, how much the character meant to them, how much of an effect his work had had, and he was truly humbled by it, and was approached by the writing staff and production staff of Star Trek with an idea on how to bring his character back into the fold, and that became Star Trek Picard. And it's one of those things that I'd have to say that I was just for one thing thrilled to have Patrick Stewart back in the saddle, so to speak. And it's set about 18 years later, both in real time for Sir Patrick's age and for his character's age. About that much time has passed, and now he's retired at his vineyard in Le Bar, France. And a lot of things have changed in the period between The Next Generation and Star Trek Picard, in that he's no longer part of Starfleet. He had a bit of a personal falling out, which is being covered in comics and perhaps the upcoming novel. But the long story short is that it takes the supernova that destroyed Romulus, referenced in the 2009 film, and officially makes it into canon, also marking the first time we've seen the Alpha Quadrant since Star Trek in its run in the 24th century ended with Deep Space Nine. So now we've finally gotten to see what's happened in that period. And during the evacuation of Romulus, a fleet was being built to save the Romulan people, but for reasons we don't yet understand, a bunch of androids destroyed the fleet. And at that point, Starfleet and the Federation's core member worlds were not willing to put up the resources to continue the evacuation. So it was used as a political reason to abandon the Romulan rescue effort. Now, apparently Picard had threatened to resign as a result of these events, and to his surprise, they accepted his resignation. So that's where Star Trek Picard picks up, and I don't really think any of that's really spoilers, because it's all stuff that is kind of background information rather than information about the new plot. But here's what I will say. I mean, the new show, it's got enough touchstones to the familiar so that you feel like you definitely know it's Star Trek. They have, transporters. There's a lot of references to things that if you are an eagle-eyed fan, you would probably know. The universe definitely is grounded in reality. The production, as is with Discovery, is excellent. And of course, the characters, both new and returning, are absolutely fantastic. We have a cameo from Brent Spiner in the first episode, which of course it's always a joy to see Brent Spiner and Patrick Stewart back on screen together. And, we know that there are going to be some cameos, but I mean, the thing to remember, and I think the thing that some people still aren't quite internalizing, is that Star Trek Picard is not Next Generation. It's not Next Generation Part 2. It's a completely different animal, because as Patrick Stewart himself has said, if you're not going to do something different, then why do it? So Star Trek Picard is its own entity and works very quickly to establish its own identity, from its unique opening sequence to the skillful writing to the gorgeous effects that have been shown so far. And if you're looking for bits of nostalgia, I mean, there are clear ties to the earlier series. It's like you get a nice shot of the Enterprise D early in the pilot episode, which is called Remembrances, directed by Hanel Culpepper, which was excellently done. And I have I expect that the rest of the first season will be as exciting and as a meaningful experience as the first episode was. I mean, when the first episode came to a conclusion, I really was surprised that it had already been 46 minutes. That's how involving and how good it was. So if you're a fan of Star Trek, I recommend it. If you like Patrick Stewart, and how could you not, check it out. It's an excellent show, and it's very, very intriguing. I mean, I'm curious to see half of what they've sort of hinted at so far. And, just as a random shout out, I have to say that, I like the two Romulans that are his housekeepers. Laris especially. I mean, she tells Patrick Stewart something, and I kind of wish I had somebody to tell me every now and then. It's just, sometimes we feel you've forgotten who you are. We do not. And it really kind of seems like it creates a moment that, really shows just how different things are for Captain Picard, Admiral Picard, retired, I suppose. But it's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to the ride. And as a random side note of nerd cred, when we were watching the series and they were talking about the mystery girl scene in the trailer, I was thinking the only thought that came to me was that this is Data's daughter. And while it wasn't Lal in the terms of being exactly the same, in effect, that's what she is in spirit. So, I'm kind of excited about having been right on that point. But I guess that's it for now. Looking forward to the rest of the series, and next week's episode drops on Thursday, so it'll be good. Catch you later. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter and a few other places on the web, or support me via Patreon or Ko-fi. Zebra hugs!